hold on one second. Let me just get to this. Okay, so we have designed, actually Jen, I should say, has created a PowerPoint presentation that people will be able to use. It's kind of an introduction to ECA, and it's very versatile because it can be used in a variety of ways and a variety of times. You can do this in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or you could do it as an hour-long presentation. Just depends on how deep you want to go into each particular slide. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the slides, but I'm going to go through them all with you and show you a couple of the videos that are within the slide presentation. So who are we? We are Elders Climate Action, and we are mobilizing elders throughout the United States to address climate change, really to do this while there's still time in order to protect our grandchildren and all future generations. If you see the picture on the left, for any of you who were not there, this was taken at our Elders Climate Action Day in April at American University, and you can see that there's a lot of happy people having a lot of fun and moving and enjoying the day. Our mission, we're dedicated to using the power of our caring, our wisdom, our numbers to really push for some strong energy policies that are going to reduce greenhouse gases to a level consistent with life thriving on our planet. Our job has become more difficult over the past few months, but we're not giving up. So, who are we? We were launched in 2014 for a campaign of Conscious Elders Network, and were actually started at a meeting in Burlingame in California, where a decision was made by Conscious Elders Network to have one of their focuses being climate change. And Paul Severance stepped up and said, that's it, that's my baby, I'm gonna head this up and I'm gonna really work on this. And he did. And so we're all elder volunteers. We have over 3,500 members in all 50 states. We've got 4 local action teams, and we've got many more to come. So you know that baby boomers are the largest voting bloc. Everybody, you all are aware of that. We make up 32% of registered voters, which is huge. And there's an estimated 80 million elders. So not only are we the largest voting bloc, but in addition to that, we elders vote. So it is a voting bloc that actually gets to the polls and votes. What are our initiatives that we support? We support carbon fee and dividend legislation, where there'll be a tax on carbon and the dividend will be paid back to households throughout the country. We'll have more information on this in our next poll, where we'll go into great detail on the carbon fee and dividend legislation proposal. That is a proposal by Citizens Climate Lobby, one of our very strong partners, and a piece of legislation that we strongly support. We also clearly support the EPA emissions regulations. That task became more difficult, but we're not going to give up. We are supporting some state and local policies, and different chapters in different areas of the country are working on various state and local policies. And additionally, we support fossil fuel divestment. And that has a variety of strategies, either individual fossil fuel divestment for people who have investments in fossil fuel tools, or there are cities and counties that have pension plans that are major invested in fossil fuels, and that's an area that Montgomery County has been really working on to get the pension, the city and county to not to divest themselves of the fossil fuel investments, and also at a corporate level. So what are we doing? We're building a movement at a local, state, and national levels. We're nonpartisan and engaged elders. We've got partnerships. We partner with over 62 organizations that vary. They're environmental, climate change organizations. Some are national, some are local. We have fun, as you could see in that last the picture before. We have fun, we develop new connections, we work together, and we have a lot of volunteer opportunities. So I'm going to show you this video, which is of Voices of Elders. You may recognize yourself in there, you may recognize other people. Just sit back and enjoy. It's a pretty nice video, and we focus a lot on Voices of Elders. So after this, if any of you would like to put together a 20 to 30 second little video of yourself just saying why climate change is so important, why you're here, why you do this. So sit back and enjoy this. Uh-oh.
Geri, for some reason we're not getting.
I know, I can see.
It just came in for a second.
Oh, it did?
Yep.
I think that I think we're going to have to skip the videos because I'm thinking that the sound just can't come through. We just don't have sufficient bandwidth to put out the sound, and I apologize, but you will all get a copy of the PowerPoint with the videos within them. So what have we done? We've come together as elders, and in 2015, we had our first Grandparents Climate Action Day, which was our first big event. It was a gathering in Washington, D.C. for a day of absolute inspiration and education. We had the following day, we met with 44 members of Congress in small teams. The teams met with their members of Congress or members of Congress from their state. And we also performed our first ever ECA flash mob. If you haven't seen it, there's a link to it in this presentation that you will be able to see. We performed this in Union Station early in the morning, and then at lunchtime in the dining room cafeteria of one of the congressional office buildings. And we had a lot of fun doing it, and people, I think, took a little notice. In 2017, we went back to Washington, D.C., and had another day of education and inspiration. And we then had a day of lobbying, followed by a day of marching. So the second day, we visited all 535 members of Congress, leaving them some information and asking them to sign a climate pledge that they would really support legislation that was going to impact climate change. And then on Saturday, we marched in the People's Climate March with about 250,000 of our closest allies. And it was hot. It was April. We didn't expect it to be 90-something degrees, but there were still 250,000 people there ready to march. I'm going to this slideshow is just a slideshow. It's from the Climate March. It doesn't matter that you don't have any sound to this one, but you could just take a look. If you weren't there, just take a look at the signs, the camaraderie, the joy that people had in being there and being together. We were with the Guardians of the Future, closely with Moms Clean Air Force and other intergenerational youth and elders working together. So enjoy this slide presentation.
Yeah, I'll leave you some for tomorrow.
So that was our slideshow from the March. Unfortunately, you couldn't hear the music due to some technical difficulties. But here we're going to talk about what have we done? How have we really taken action? In 2016, we embarked on a congressional candidates climate project where we asked congressional candidates to fill out a short survey letting us know and everybody else know their opinions on climate change and their attitudes towards various pieces of legislation and what they would do. We also had an elders climate voter pledge where we asked elders to take a pledge, and in that pledge they were going to state that they will vote and that they would take into consideration climate change when they picked a candidate that they would vote for. We, along with many other organizations, embarked on a Stop Scott Pruitt's nomination to the EPA campaign. We all know how that turned out, not so well for us. We have a monthly newsletter, and now we're having monthly national and volunteer calls. So we're pretty active. We're not going to stop. We've got more work to do, and with this administration, our work got more difficult. How do we have elders engage? We have three different, actually more than three, but three main strategies. We have chapters, which are an organized group that are located in a specific geographic area. Collaborations, where we work or a small group works with another organization on a project or supports a campaign. And then teams where you've got 2 or 3 people either in the same geographic location identifying a project, or perhaps not. It could be people that get together through video conferencing and have a project that they're going to do, develop some letter writing or some other thing that can be done that's not necessarily needs to be done face to face. And then we have our national committees. We have a leadership committee, which is the committee that really sets the stage and supports all the activities of Elders Climate Action. And then under that, we've got some various subcommittees. We have a fundraising committee, an engagement committee, which is our chapter development committee, communications and marketing, partnership, and a policy committee. So those are all different ways that we can engage. We have now 4 chapters. Our oldest chapter, our eldest chapter of Elders was formed in 2016. It is a very well-defined chapter. They work with they have alliances with other environmental groups in the Massachusetts area. They have acquired for themselves a $5,000 grant for some specific outreach activities. They do presentations. They've participated in Senate hearings and various legislative actions in their state. And they participate in a lot of local efforts. Our next chapter to join us is the Ann Arbor chapter, and they became on board early in 2017, and they are focused mostly on the mixture between activism and educational activities, trying to do some socialization and build a strong community. We have new local chapters. The Northern California chapter, or NorCal as they like to be called, was inspired by our Elders Climate Action Day this spring. And they cover a pretty large geographic area in Northern California. And they're working on developing a strategy to see what kind of state and regional policies they can take a stand on and work on. Our very newest chapter is our Maryland chapter. And I believe we've got members from Northern California and Maryland on the call. They've met several times, and they were also inspired by Elders Climate Action Day. And they have made a decision to start working to oppose a natural gas pipeline that is scheduled to cross the Potomac River. And on a note on natural gas pipelines, there's a natural gas pipeline that is in northern and central Florida, and the courts have it's already been built and it's operational, and the courts have just ruled that they cannot be doing that. So there's a small victory, and we have small victories. So what do we want to do? We really want to leave a legacy of change. We want to change energy policies, reduce greenhouse gases, and create a planet where life will continue to thrive. How do we do that? We do that by uniting. So people ask all the time, well, what can I do? I don't really know what to do. I don't have any ideas. So we put together 10 simple ways that people can participate. I'm not going to go through them all. You'll see them all when you get the PowerPoint, but just a smattering of them. It could be as easy as sending a letter to your representative, sending a letter to your local mayor or city commission or your county mayor. It doesn't even, it can be your state rep or your congressional, any of them. You could start out small until you're really comfortable. You can start a chapter or participate in an event. There's a lot of opportunities to contribute skills. We need a lot of help in that area. We could use any skills that people can contribute and be willing to give. And of course, tax-deductible contributions are always an asset for us, so that we can really build our infrastructure, expand our support, have more chapters and more organizations locally and at a state level. So here are our social media handles. You don't have to write it down because you're going to get this. But just to let you know, we're on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Twitter is pretty new to us. And you may or may not be familiar with the poem by Drew Dillinger, What Did You Do Once You Knew? Unfortunately, because our sound is not operational, I was going to have Drew Dillinger read his poem to you, but, and it's a stirring, stirring poem. If you haven't heard it or read it, I hope you do spend the time to listen to it. And you will get this and be able to play it when you get your own copy of this. So I would like to thank you and let you know that this is a presentation that you could use with your family, with your friends. You could take to a senior center. You can take it to an event, to legislative officials. It's pretty versatile. You can do a lot with it. You can use the videos or not use the videos. You can skip over them. You can make it as long or as short as you really want to do. So now the question I have for you all is, what kind of ideas do you have? And we'll take some comments from people. What kind of ideas do you have for using this video in your community, either in your community or at some events? Just raise your hand and Jen will unmute you if you have some ideas. Catherine.
Hi there. Thank you so much, Geri and team who put this great video together. My feeling as I was watching it was that it was too long, that the slideshow was too long, that there are a number of pictures which were repeated. And so I'm wondering, would we be able to eliminate some of those pictures? Will we be having as a slide? Because some of them were repetitious.
You're not going to be able to do any editing on it. We can certainly edit it and maybe make a couple of versions, a long version and a short version. We can certainly do that. Make it available.
Yeah, concerned. Of course, I was there, but still, I think that rather than having too many repeated, some of the long banners were repeated a number of times. And I think the variety is great.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you.
How would you use it? What would you do with this slideshow?
I do it at my church on a Sunday afternoon. And Marilyn and I are talking about doing presentations at different convalescent homes and retirement homes. Not so convalescent, but retirement, mm-hmm. assisted living. And so we're gathering places and want to see about doing that.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Jerome.
Interdenominational service. We had one this past Sunday that I participated in. I would have been nice to have it. What we did use as an introduction was the trailer for the Al Gore new film, Inconvenient Truth. And it would be nice to incorporate something of that in this slideshow, even if it were just a mention or as a resource, mention the Gore studies. And they have a website and links to various other resources as well. And I think I was very impressed with the film. I saw it last Thursday, and it's very impressive. And I was ready to go out and campaign Gore for president. He's quite an inspirational guy, and I don't know about his personal life or what would come out in the media, but hopefully not too much. But I'd like to see some of that because it is a nationally. He's a national figure. It's a nationally seen film, and with some really good graphics. And it'd be nice to incorporate even a snippet of it in this slideshow. So at the presentation, we had a Buddhist and a Native American and myself, nice Jewish boy from Brooklyn, at a Presbyterian church here in Westchester. And it was interesting to get both the Buddhist and the American Indian, who's a part of the Ramapo Lenape tribe, talk about their view of the environment and the environmental issues.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else have some? Judd?
So I'm thinking, I liked it a lot. I agree with Catherine. There's a lot of repetition there in some of the pictures. I'm thinking about how to use it. As you know, Geri, I'm working with a group here in New England called the Elders for Climate Justice. And we're kind of at the beginning of a project. And first of all, I'm going to show it to them and possibly share it with other people in the Mankind Project, and then see if we can figure out how to wrap it into our project somehow.
Great. Yeah, that would be a good use. And we'll take a look at that slideshow. We wanted to offer a lot of variety. So, in different options for people to use or not use. Any other comments or ways to use it, Sue?
This is Marilyn. I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hi. Yeah, well, and actually, I thank you. I had a great, everything that I got today, all the business cards, a wonderful job. So thank you. And I did download them, and while we were talking, I went to look at the PowerPoint. Actually, it does look like I can edit it on my machine. I just enabled editing, and it looks like I can make changes. I don't know, maybe you don't want people to make changes, but I opened up the PowerPoint part. So I just wanted to mention that if you wanted to check into it, and if you don't want people to make changes, you might, want to send it in a different way. But the other thing I was going to say is we have been looking at doing a presentation here for the Northern California group, 2 retirement homes. The other presentation that we got was from the Massachusetts chapter. And I've shared it. I can hear Catherine's on the phone, and Shirley and Carol. I shared it with them. And I would imagine that, and I would love expert opinion on this, but like going into retirement homes, my question would be is, which of the 2 presentations, the one we got from Massachusetts or yours, or a combination of the 2, we are actually going to look at that here, and we can send you, after we look at them, our suggestions. But love to hear from anybody at any point of time if you're able to view the Massachusetts ones too, to see what people recommended as for these retirement homes.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I think
because you might do a different slant. Like this one, I could see going into, I belong to Mill Valley Community Action, a group of adults. They're all into climate, and I might use this to get them to also join Elders Climate Action. Retirement homes might be a little bit of a different story. What is our ask of them? What slides do we want to show to get them engaged? So, and maybe at some point, if the Massachusetts one is adopted, we could also then have some, one like specifically for retirement homes on your website too, as a suggestion.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Marilyn. And certainly, the intention with this is that you either go through it slide by slide, very methodically, or you just quickly you can just read headers on slides and move on, depending on your audience. I think that was part of the purpose, was to enable people to use whatever parts of it that they want. In terms of editing the individual slides, our preference is not. Our preference
changed. That setting's been changed. You can't edit it now.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention, and mostly because it's under the ECA banner and it's under CEN. So we want to make sure that that if it's somewhere elsewhere, not within this group, of course, but it could be changed and become a negative. And we're just a little protective of Elders Climate Action and CEN, so you'll have to forgive us on that. Sue, you wanted to say something.
Yes, what we're setting up in the Gainesville, Florida area, we call the community-wide climate conversation. And what we're offering to schools and churches and businesses is a menu of resources. And I can see this being one of many that are offered so that people can, if somebody chose this particular one, they said, oh, Elders Climate Action, I'd like to know about that. And they watch it and they say, oh, I think my church would enjoy that. And so then they can just show your video and possibly have a phone conversation if they want with somebody from this organization. So that's one approach.
Great. This is not intended to be the sort of everything about Elders Climate Action or climate change. This is really an introductory and one of many, many resources that people can use, and certainly people can use, An Inconvenient Truth. I just purchased the book of Inconvenient Truth, the sequel. It is fantastic. I think it's better than the movie, to tell you the truth. So if you get a chance, check out the book. But we do have resources on our website, and hopefully, maybe we need to be more directive in the slide presentation to let people know that there are additional resources and where to go to get them, and then, you could access them or add them to your resource list, etc.
Geri, could I step in here? And that is, I think that this is a very good and useful dialogue. I agree that there was a lot of repetition in some of the slide shots that if you were familiar, you could pick up on that repetition. Perhaps if you were seeing it for the first time, it might not hit you as much. It might be more of a reinforcement. But I think that's something that could be carved out. It's clear looking at this, that this is really about Elders Climate Action. That is, this is an introduction to an organization and what it's doing. And its purpose is to help people feel comfortable that this is a space, a place, colleagues, friends that I could work with. It isn't trying to educate on climate change. It isn't trying to educate about what really the different initiatives are out there, although we do list the prime ones that ECA is buying in on. And so this presentation or snippets from it would be useful for an audience that might be interested in knowing about Elders Climate Action and what they're doing, or possibly joining. And it might be that, and I haven't looked at our other resources recently, but building other resources, a 5-minute on what climate change is and how it's affecting sea level rise, weather patterns, and things like that might be a useful adjunct, so that basically you could mix and match depending on your audience.
Yes, I think that what has been brought out about that it's not really to talk about what climate change is. It might, to follow on what Leslie just said, be a great package if you could show some slides from the climate reality or some other educational program, and then, okay, there's the problem, and then present ECA as a solution. I think a lot of what I've heard about climate change presentations is that they often show the problem. And it's easy to show the problem, but it isn't always as easy to show a possible solution. So I think what you just said, Leslie, and I do agree with Catherine about too many slides of the same banners.
Shirley, this is Brett. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
or as we old folks say, is this thing on? Okay. I've been bragging to Leslie about how I can do all these kinds of technical things. I can't even get my mic to work. But I'm very interested in what you just said, Shirley, that, we want to affect change. And it seems to me to affect change, you need to affect policy. And to affect policy, we need to understand how policy actually happens in DC and at the state level. And this is old news to Leslie, but I'm convinced that what we need to do is we need to work our own personal social networks to reach out to people who live in Republican congressional districts. My experience with the Howard Dean campaign up in Burlington years ago is that there's a lot of very smart, very people in every red congressional district. Now, because the Republicans control the Congress, there's no sense talking to a Democrat. First of all, they agree with us, okay, and they don't have any power. So if we actually want to have an effect on policy, it seems to me that we need to, reach out to our network and have our friends in red districts, who in districts which, for instance, are represented on the Energy and Commerce Committee. I know this sounds a little wonky, but we can have all the slideshows in the world and all the I don't want to be cynical, but the fact is, if we want to affect policy, we need to figure out what those activities are. That's why I volunteered to help. We were a little slow. I made a lot of big-time promises to Leslie, came on big, strong. I had this great big effect. We haven't quite got there. Sort of like getting my microphone unmuted. But we'll get there, and we'll have some great tools to offer. But I would like us to focus on how do we get our friends who are moderates and smart elders in Republican congressional districts, which are represented, for example, on the Energy and Commerce Committee in the House, which has 31 Republicans on it, which is 7% of the representatives in the House of Representatives, which means only 7% of the people in the country have any influence on policy. So I suggest that we be really smart about that, and let's get our friends who are in those 31 districts to help us out. And it might not be as fun as putting these slideshows together, but it's a lot more effective. I hate to say it, but there's no sense talking to a Democratic representative, because we don't need her help. By the way, I always talk about, I ignore political correctness when I talk about these things. I always say him and he when I talk about the Congress people we have to affect, because we don't have a problem with the women. We have a problem with the males.
Yeah, and Britt, what you're saying, I mean, obviously it is policy that needs to be affected, behaviors that need to be affected. And part of that is growing our numbers, having those friends in that network to reach out to, so that in fact, when we have people in red districts or with connections, we can use them. And I think much of this, what we're looking at right now, are ways of expanding our base. So in fact, we have the people power and the connections to carry out some of the policy objectives and lobbying objectives that we're all interested in.
This is Josephine. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Britt, I don't entirely agree with you. I mean, I understand with limited resources, we need to focus on our red districts and red congressional representatives. But, the Democrats really need to, we need to hold their back, we would need to support the people that are on our side. I mean, they keep saying that, and I think there's some truth in that. That they need to hear from us.
You're right. One of the most important functions here is to provide air cover, as I call it, for politicians who are on our side, so they can develop and grow and retain their spine. And this is also another reason why it's important, when we have an expression of support for somebody, it be out there and be public in a space that we manage, rather than a communication that goes into a congressman's office and then gets lost in the memory hole.
Sorry,
There's
yeah.
no sense having an intern say, yeah, that sounds smart, and then clicking, file, automatic letter.
Right, and that's why, Brett, with any of our campaigns, that we ask congressional candidates or congresspeople to respond, we post their responses on our website. And we actually provide links to those responses in our newsletters. And we could be doing letters to the editor. I think there were a couple on our last project in 2016. So, and I think, Josephine, you're absolutely right. Every member of the House is going to be up for re-election or not in 2018. It's a very short distance away from us right now, and we need to be able to let our congressional representatives, whether if they're Democrats and they're supporting us or if they're Republicans and they're supporting climate change issues, we need to support them in what they're doing and let them know that they're doing the right thing. The Congressional Climate Caucus now has 54 members,
Wow.
which consists of 27 Republicans. So, we need to support those people, not just the people that we want to change, but also the people that are supporting our cause. Any other comments, suggestions?
I have a sidebar which is not related to the topic on the table. I may be the last person in this gathering to have learned this, but I just very recently finally signed up for the New York Times online. And it turns out that they can send you a daily or frequent newsletter specifically with climate change stories. Isn't that cool?
It is, and there are other publications too where you can sort of designate what you want to receive. The New York Times is actually really good because they'll send you a morning brief and an evening brief on a daily basis.
Right.
And some publications do it without your having to subscribe.
Washington Post does it.
Uh-huh.
They have a specific, place where you can say, I want to receive stories on climate change topics. Is that what you're saying, Jen?
Google has Google Alerts that you can set up for climate change, and I'll give you all the major headlines from all the major
with
networks.
links.
Yeah,
with links to those. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's also an aggregator called Climate Nexus that produces a daily email which consists of sort of headlines and links across various news sources and news venues. So they have national, they have U.S., they have world, and they have opinion, and they have it categorized. And there's a wealth of resource information there too, because you can get a variety of different publications. And you just click on them.
So you would go to the Climate Nexus website and
sign up for their daily brief. Yeah,
right.
There's a lot, and one of the things the danger is you can end up in a position that I end up in, where I subscribe to so many I can't read them all.
Right.
So it's a bit of a slippery slope.
Some of them probably repeat.
Yes, they do. They do
the same stories. Yeah.
But you really, Climate Nexus is good because it's reputable. New York Times too, unbeknownst to our president, but it is reputable. Somebody else had a comment?
Jerome. Marilyn, I'll give you two more because I got these from Steve Simon with our policy committee, and he likes Inside Climate and Daily Climate. I signed up for both of them. Mm-hmm. So I guess everybody could sign up for a bunch of them and see what they like.
Yeah, I think maybe in our next newsletter, we'll just list these links. What do you think, Shirley? We can just list them, and then everybody will get them. You and others will also get them. Jerome.
Yeah, I think that policy and influencing policy is an important aspect of changing the attitude toward climate. But I also think ECA should perhaps focus on what the elder can do to make change as well, to be the change that we want to see in the world. And perhaps, I know there's some good literature out there on 50 ways to save the planet, things of that nature, but to emphasize that we should be aware of our own actions and maybe give some guidance as to what can be done by individuals to contribute to a reduced carbon footprint.
Absolutely. And just as for your information, Conscious Elders Network is actually putting together a sustainable living component of the organization, and they're going to be putting together some materials that will be available probably within the next, I'm not sure when, but they'll be available shortly to address just that for people.
Excellent.
Great.
Catherine.
Hi. When I got involved with ECA, I realized that I get so much email on my regular that I actually opened up a second Yahoo, so that I can switch easily from one to the other. So ECA is very special for me. I have a special web. My browser goes to ECA and also to my family. So I don't have all the other stuff that comes in.
Great. Great idea. Judd, you had something?
Before we wind down here tonight, I mentioned at the last Zoom call that we had recently had an interview with Bill McKibben as part of our project with the Elders for Climate Justice. We had another very excellent interview today with the president and executive director of Sierra Club, Lauren Blackford and Michael Brune. And also we have a video recording of that. And I'd like to talk to you maybe offline about whether you can find a spot on your website for that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah. Sure. That would be great. Thank you. It would be wonderful to share. Appreciate it. Our website is really our hub for information. And we are actually transitioning to a new format, which hopefully will be a lot easier to navigate. But that's really our information hub. We don't do anything in paper, so you've never received a piece of paper from ECA. Everything is electronic and virtual. And we don't have, we only get together maybe once a year as an organization physically. So we need to make our website the most user-friendly and the information hub so people can find and share information. And then if you've got something that's fabulous as a resource, let us know. And if we can put a link to it. We also
do we send that sort of information to Jen?
Sure.
Yeah. You're the one that puts it up, Jen, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Jen C at eldersclimateaction.org.
We also have as I mentioned, over 62 partners, thanks to our partnership committee. And we have links to as many of our partners as we possibly can on our website. So not only can you find out what's going on with us, but you could find out what's going on with our partners also.
I'd also like to say that if you have something that you think would be interesting for our monthly newsletter, I would love to receive that. And for instance, on the last call, Judd offered, or I asked him if he would do a review of a book, and he did it right away and sent it to me, and that's going to be in our next newsletter. And we're always looking for not only articles, small paragraphs, but photographs. If you meet with another organization, just take a quick pic with your phone and send it off to us, and you'll be famous on our newsletter.
Or if you meet with any of your representatives or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you meet with anybody, yeah, definitely. Thank you.
And when you get the PowerPoint, you will see the Voices of Elders clips, where they're very short clips where people were just talking about why they got involved with Elders Climate Action or why they are involved in climate change issues. And if anybody would like to you can do it on your cell phone, a 20 to 30 second or even shorter little clip. Just send it to Jen, and we can use it and share it with people. So it seems like we're at the end of our time. Our next call will be on September 27th, and we're going to have a presenter presenting on carbon fee and dividend and really going through that so that it will clarify it for everybody, and also talk about what the status of it is in our new administration. So I would like to thank you all for coming tonight. Leslie, you have any?
No, I really have enjoyed the dialogue and the perspectives that have been shared. I think we've all learned a lot from this. I mean, the PowerPoint is and can be a very powerful way of meeting with certain groups, but clearly not one size doesn't fit all. And this has raised a lot of perspectives, and I hope some of you get interested in helping with media development.
Thank you all very much. Hope to see you next month. I hope you enjoy the newsletter when it comes out next month. And I thank you all for spending your time. It's been a joy to be with you all. And we'll see you all again soon.
Thank you, Geri. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Everybody.